Hey everybody, it's Mikkel. Welcome back. We're going to dive right in and talk about steps. Not stair steps, but we're going to use that mentality of stair steps and talk about steps on the piano and how we get from one note to the next. And before we dive in, do me a favor, like, subscribe, and share, and leave me some comments. Let me know if this is helping you, if you're getting it, if there's anything I need to explain better, if there's anything that I'm not sharing or that you need, or vice versa. I'd like to hear from you. All right, so let's dive right in. And I'm going to tell you right now, I am borrowing some charts from a wonderful little site called viva.pressbooks.pub. I'm throwing that up on the screen for you. I am borrowing some good charts from them. They have a wonderful set of information for piano. It's just fantastic stuff. Their charts are clear and easy to understand. I love it. All right, so here we go. So I'm going to show you right now, we're going to talk about the whole steps, and then we'll get to these half steps, and it works together. So whole steps are the steps between your notes or your keys on your keyboard, and we count by steps. All right, we have our alphabet, our A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but we also run by the numbers, and we count by steps as well. So every movement is a step. And I think that's really important to understand. So showing you real quickly, there are what we call whole steps. As you see here, one note to the next, one white key to the next key is a whole note, but it can be one black key to the next black key is a whole note. There are some exceptions to how that works, and I'm going to show you that here in a minute, and then it may make more sense. All right, and then we also have then what we refer to is half steps. And your half steps work exactly the same way. They are one note to the next, and they are one key to the next. And I want you to notice over here on the whole steps where we skipped this, we didn't talk about that one, we went here to here. We didn't talk about B to C or E to F. Over here on the half steps, it's because they are a half step apart and not a whole step apart. So the chart kind of shows you that really clearly, what whole steps and half steps are. Now I'm going to pull up the piano and we're just going to do it live, and it's more interesting that way anyway. So here we go. Let's take a look. So I'm going to use the key of C because it's fun. All right, and it's simple. All right. I'm going to count by whole steps. What is a whole step? A whole step, I'm going to put it this way. I think to me this is simpler because it makes more sense. You know, you have whole steps and half steps. So actually back up. Let's do half steps first, and I'll show you why. Here's half steps. Half steps are every movement to the next key, to the very next key is a half step. Now what I mean by that is if I go from C to C sharp, that is the very next key, is it not? It is. This is not the very next key. This is the next key. Okay, that's what I mean. It's the very next one. I mean, literally the very next one. There's a little bit of space right here. Literally the very next one. This is the next one in line before that one. So that's the half step. That's a half step. That's a half step. That's a half step. That's a half step. Guess what? There's no black key here to do that. These two, like the chart said, are half steps to each other. That's a half step. Half step. Half step. Half step. And obviously, if this is a half step to this one, and this is a half step to this one, then this one is a half step, same thing going backwards. Half step, half step, half step, half step, all the way up the board, okay? Now, why was that important? Because we count a lot of things by half steps. You're going to be able to get a lot of different quality chords by counting the half steps if you don't already know how to play them. Augmented, diminished, minor, major. Those are some of the things you can do and find counting by half steps. There's literally some setups that we can do that we're going to show you here on the next one on how to find using that process to find certain chords in any key. Awesome. And you'll see why that works. You can use the whole step, half step to find any scale in any key, minor, major, blues, pentatonic. There's a bunch of different scales. You find them by the steps. All right, so here we go. Whole steps. Well, I already showed you what half steps are. So what's a whole step? If you do two halves make a whole, get it? Half a pie, one whole pie. Two halves make a whole. So 50 cents, one whole dollar. Same idea. So if this to this is a half, then this to this is a half. That must mean this to this is a whole, and that would be correct. So check this out. If I go, and I'm just playing C down here and C up here at the same time, just because my hand needs something to do here, and it sounds like full and orchestrated and wonderful. All right, so C to D is a whole step. How do I know that? Because C to C sharp, aka D flat, this does double duty, is a half step. And if I do two half steps, I get a whole step. Whole step. So here we go. Half step, which means that's a whole step, isn't it? That's correct. Half step, that's a whole step, isn't it? That's correct. Now watch this though. Half step, meaning this one and this one are whole steps. You see that? Half step, meaning this one and this one are whole steps. Let me say it this way. In order to get a whole step, you have to skip a half step. What? This is a whole step. F to G, that's a whole step. I'm skipping the half step in between. G to A is a whole step. I'm skipping the half step in between. A to B is a whole step. I'm skipping the half step in between. I could do that backwards. I could do this F sharp to G sharp is a whole step because I'm skipping the half step in between. G sharp to A sharp, aka B flat, is a whole step because I'm what? Skipping the half step in between. So if I get over here, what do? B flat or A sharp, pick one, to C would be a whole step because I'm skipping the half step in between. If you play the key of C scale, it's built into the scale without touching any of the sharps and flats because C has no sharps and flats, the C scale. Watch this. Whole step, C to D. Whole step, D to E. Half step, E to F. Whole step, whole step, half step. You see that? It's built right in. Notice, skips a half, skips a half, doesn't skip a half, it is the half, skips a half, skips a half, skips a half, doesn't skip a half, it is the half. Now we're going to get into how you count that because it's how you find a major scale. We'll do that later. So, to recap, half steps are every movement, and steps are every movement, right? Up or down. And half steps, literally, see, it's time for me to stop. Half steps are literally, isn't that cool? The little things here, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's fun. Did you notice how that's a half step? I was playing the fifths. That's called a tritone. Woo! Ouch! Fingers on a chalkboard. All right, so skip a half step in between, you get a whole step. Skipping the half step gives me a whole step. The only place you can't do that is 2 places in every scale. B to C or C to B. E to F, F to E. They are the half steps. Otherwise, you can skip them. Now you can skip them between the sharps and the flats. You can skip them there. You just can't skip them here because there is nothing to skip. All right, so steps, wholes, halves, except for right here, they are the halves. And you can use those to count and find some really cool things that we're going to look at a little bit later on the next video and show you how to find chords, scales, and different qualities of your sounds like seconds, thirds, fourths, fifths, perfect fourths, augmented, diminished, minor, major. All those can be found. Teach you how to find those using that method until you get them memorized. And in some pieces of music, it really helps because you're like, well, how does that go? And you can actually work it out. But, oh, that's how that goes. It shows you how to find that, how to make those sounds on purpose, and you know what you're actually doing. Or if you hear them, you can be like, I know what that is. So it comes in very handy, believe it or not. All right. So again, whole steps are either a white key to a white key, a black key to a black key. Use what I said, and you can do it really well. You skip a half step in between. Your half steps are literally from one key to the very next key, which means a white to a black to a white to a black to a white to a white, F, E and F or B and C, is where you're going to get still a half step. All right, looking at that. So those are really helpful. Very simple, really, but something to keep in mind on that. Alrighty then, we're going to jump into the next thing on the next video. And again, check out viva.pressbooks.pub. Is where I got these charts, and they have so many other things there that's very helpful that can help you in your journey of becoming a better piano player every day, getting a little better. Get out there and just play. That's how you get better. Just play. have fun. Make mistakes. Nobody cares. Play anyway. You might discover something cool just by doing that. All right. Catch you on the next video. And I'll see you later. Like, subscribe, share. Check you later.